Good morning, guys. We're off to Castleton and the local caverns, and it's a very foggy morning. Anyway, we'll see you there. And here we are. We finally arrived at the Speedwell Cavern. Let's go spelunking.
Safety before you set off your hard hats. Just keep them on at all times. See the white rim that's going around the side of the boat? Please keep everything you want to return with inside of that white rim. Apart from that, is anybody claustrophobic or scared of the dark? No? Well, we'll see, won't we, when we set off? By the way, your life jackets are under your seats. I'm joking, we couldn't afford those. Right, we'll set off. For the first sort of 10 metres it will be a little bit low. Basically, you see the person in front of you duck, you'll need to duck. Also, hour is a good indicator. Just watch your heads. So now that everyone looks thoroughly mortified, at this point you are probably wondering what on earth you're doing down a dark, dingy tunnel with a guy leading you that you've just met. Now that is a long list of concerning things, but I'll skip straight past it. What we are currently drifting down is the remains of an 18th century lead mine. It started in 1771 and ended in 1791. Only lasted for 20 years, and that's because it was a massive financial disaster. The boss back then put in £12,000 into the mine, and he got £3,000 out. In today's money, that's about a loss of £8 million, and that explains the extortionate ticket prices upstairs. Still trying to make their money back. Don't tell my boss I said that. Now, as we travel down the tunnel, we'll come up to the first of 3 of the veins of lead that the miners found. First one is called the Little Winster vein. It was mined out by a 7-year-old boy. He'd be working down here for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. He only had 2 hours off on Sunday for church. He'd mine with a pickaxe in one hand, a shovel in the other, a bucket round his neck and a candle in his mouth, made out of a substance called tallow. Tallow isn't your average candle wax you'd find at home. It's made out of sheep's fat and fire ash. Similar sort of ingredients to what you'd find inside a McDonald's burger. And it's pretty grim stuff. Now we're coming up to where Winster, the 7-year-old, would have been working. It's in this hole on your guy's left-hand side, literally, as we speak. It's 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in there. And sometimes I go in there and cry. Now we're coming up to a point called the halfway house. Does anyone want to give me a wild guess why they think it's called the halfway house?
You're halfway to the end.
Oh, good guesses. That's called the halfway house for the simple and logical explanation that it sits directly 1/3 of the way down the tunnel. Now, you can't fault the miners' logic for naming it this. They actually named it after their favourite pub above ground, the Halfway House Inn. Did any of you go through Castleton today to get here? The village around the bottom? Brilliant. You would have gone past a pub on the corner in the village called Ye Old Nag's Head. Did any of you know? Brilliant. That was the Halfway House. They just changed the name. Back in the day, the miners drank in that pub at any opportunity they got. Most of the time, they turned up to work down here drunk. They did this because they made a friend in the pub, a doctor. The doctor told the miners the cure for lead poisoning was alcohol. Now, they loved this idea so much they drank all the time. Also turns out that that doctor was also the landlord of the pub at the time as well. Made him a very rich man. Now, the halfway house down here was dug out so the miners had somewhere to store their tools, their alcohol, and used as a safety hole. That last point I'll expand on later on. Nowadays, we use it for a very different purpose, because directly behind me, headed directly towards us, is another boat. It's full of people, and they want to get past. Does anyone see an issue with this? Oh yeah, it's a very tight squeeze to get past either side. So what we're going to do is pull into the halfway house down here, sort of a little lay-by. We'll pull in there, we'll let this boat go past, we'll be on our way again. Now, a little bit of word of warning about the other boats, specifically the people in the boats. We have no idea how long they've been down here for. So, as they go past us, do not look them in the eyes. Do not speak to them. Don't make any sudden movements. They're extremely hungry and quite feral. And the tour guide sat at the front of their boat, he's really well known. He's really well known for jumping on other people's boats, holding everyone hostage, and demanding sausage rolls. So just ignore him.
So was it always full of water?
Good question. No, at the start it was completely dry until the miners hit a point which is literally about 5 metres away from where we are now. I'll be able to show you once this boat's gone past. But no, it's completely dry at the start until the miners hit this certain point. We're coming up, guys, now to the halfway house, you see. Now, it's the lowest part of the tour in here, please watch heads. Also, it's really dark, it's rather dingy and quite smelly, and the toilets are 106 steps above. It's basically a Weatherspoons.
So what were they used this for back then?
This back then was used for explosives, storing tools. I'll explain more about the explosives later. But they used it mainly for tool storage, keeping explosives dry back there. Also, they used it as sort of a safety hole, which I'll expand on again later on. But behind me in the darkness, you can't really see it. There's a black door. Behind the black door, it goes to a 100-foot drop, which then goes into 14 miles of natural cave systems. So nowadays, it's used as an entrance into the cave systems themselves, which is pretty cool, actually. But, yeah.
So you said that's a natural cave, all this was mined
So this
out.
was mined out by hand and using something else. But we're going to go, once we get through this tunnel, when this boat lets us pass, we're going for about half a kilometre, and then we're going to enter a natural cavern, which then go into the 14 miles of cave systems again. I'll be able to show you that later on. Hello!
Josh!
Yes!
We've had a radio message about you.
Oh yeah?
There's a young lady looking for you in the gift shop.
Alright.
She said she's been looking for you for nearly 9 months. Good luck with that, mate. mate. Let me know when it is.
Thanks, Alex. It's alright, I brought my mum down on a tour the other day and he made the exact same joke and she just looked dead serious. I've never been more scared in my life. Right, we shall continue, bear with me.
Keeping it moving, yeah.
Watch your heads, guys, I'm going to get us out of here. Now, the boat has no reverse gears. This is not a good thing, so we're going to hit the back wall, but it won't be so bad. There we go. It's the iceberg. There we go. Right then, guys, we shall continue. It's where we just pulled into the halfway house. Now, the miners used it to store their tools or alcohol. They used it as a safety hole. That last point I'll expand on shortly. Nowadays, just use it as a passing point. And it's also an entrance into the 14 miles of cave systems. Now, the hole directly on your right-hand side after the halfway house, that is the bellows hole. Remember that for future reference. Now, after the bellows hole comes one of my favourite parts of the tour. If we've got any dry stone wall enthusiasts, you'll love this bit. Once we get through here, please feel free to touch a brick either side. It's quite a lot warmer than the rock around, and that's for a very unique and special purpose. I've even been told healing properties and anti-aging. I'm 65 this week. Brilliant. Now, those of you that didn't touch the wall, probably for the best. Those of you that did, that wall was a bit warmer. It's also very slimy. That's because that was the foundations for the staff toilets. Please feel free to wipe your hands on the person next to you. Oh, that's brilliant. I should have warned you about that. Everyone looks very unimpressed. No, I'm joking, don't worry. It's not a toilet. It's actually the second vein of lead the miners found. It's called the Longcliffe vein. It's actually directly below the Longcliffe Hill. It was so successful and went all the way up to the surface. But with it going to the surface, they realised they'd made a mistake. They left a hole at the top, allowing the system we are travelling along to flood. Someone asked earlier about the water and it being down here originally. That was the original point it flooded from. From then onwards, they were working in the water. But as you can imagine, it'd be extremely hard to walk in the water carrying the rock to get rid of it. So it's also the original point that the miners put boats down here. Boats a lot smaller than this one, made of wood. The miners realised very quickly all the men and children were busy mining. They couldn't push the boats back and forth, so they got their wives to work down here with them, pushing the boats back and forth down this tunnel, doing a technique called legging. Have any of you ever heard of the term legging it, like running away? Yeah, well, it actually comes from this. They still use it on canal boats, but the term originates from here. Now, the women will get to the front of the boat, their backs pressed against it, their feet pressed against the ceiling, pushing the boats back and forth like so, having to transport any material or anything the men may need back and forth down the system. Now, I'm going to stop doing this in a second, and I actually apologise because it looks like I'm talking out my arse. Yeah, I'm going to spare all of you that image. I'm so sorry at the front. Anyway, now moving swiftly on, if you look above you, you'll see all over the ceiling there are cylindrical grooves. They weren't just using pickaxes, they were using explosives. There's 15 of these grooves every 8 inches. They take about an hour each to dig out. After that, they put in black powder, secured everything with a wax bung, then put in a straw fuse. Once the straw fuse was lit, the miners had 20 seconds to get away from the blast. 20 seconds. I mentioned earlier the halfway house was used as a safety hole. It was used as a safety hole to get away from the incoming rock that would travel towards the miners at roughly 500 miles an hour. The further they dug behind me, the further the halfway house, their only safety hole to get away from the incoming rock, got behind you guys. So this led to some minor accidents. That one went down like a lead balloon. Right guys, we're all in the same boat here. Okay, I'm going to stop. But coming up is something very important. Now the miners needed another safety hole to get away from that rock. So, went to the boss and asked him, please can we have 2 weeks of paid work and we can dig out another halfway house? The boss said, sure, okay, on 2 conditions. First one being, it's unpaid work. Second one being, you have 2 days instead of 2 weeks to dig out this hole. The result of the hole is coming up, literally, as we speak, on your left-hand side. Now this hole had to fit 5 men, 3 children and all their tools. It's the halfway house 2.0. Very impressive, I know. Now, you wouldn't believe it, but we've gone and done the maths. That hole was the same size as a London flat. You realise very quickly you're not going to fit anyone in there. The miners realise this. They went back to their boss and asked him if they could continue digging to make the hole bigger. He said, no, you're wasting my time, find lead. It's exactly what they did. There's a vein of lead coming up on your guy's left-hand side in the next 3 seconds. It's called the poor man's vein. It's called the poor man's vein because they only found half a bucket's worth of lead in here. It's also home to Derbyshire's smallest and only beach. It's low tide at the moment. Half a bucket's worth of lead don't really make much sense for the size of the hole. That's because they lied to their boss. They just told him there was more lead in there than there actually was, so they could continue to dig. It's exactly what they did behind me, where there's a bright white light at the end of the tunnel. And no, that is not your impending doom. That's Speedwell Cavern itself. We're going to hop off in there. I'm going to show you guys around. Now, at the very end, I need to secure the boat to make sure it's safe for you all to get off. Just bear with me for a moment. And if I go quiet, you guys hear running water. Yeah, down the other end. Yeah, that's it's a good sign. It means the attraction is still working. We only put it in yesterday. I'm not going to lie. Got mixed reviews. The Speedwell Cavern's log flume went really well till we got to the loop-de-loop and everyone fell out. Actually, I need to get them. If you guys just hold on tight, you'll be fine. Any more questions before we get to the cavern?
How deep's the water?
A metre. It's also about 3 degrees, so if you're in it, you'll know about it. Any more questions, guys? Any personal problems you want to share with the group? Guys, what currently stood in Speedwell Cavern itself, it's formed over 250 million years ago. You see where the miners have been. On the left hand side of the wall are the footholes the miners put in. Got 2 steeps, we put in a ladder. It's the original ladder, it's over 200 years old. Made of solid oak. Behind the 2 boulders at the very top was the only bit of lead the miners found in the cavern itself. About 3 buckets worth of that. They were very disappointed, needing more lead. So they dug another tunnel direct parallel from the one we travelled down here. Now that is the park now. The mine's over 240 metres and that brings in 14 miles of natural cave systems I mentioned to a few of you earlier. This is the main entrance into the cave systems. Now that right behind me in the darkness is a piece de resistance in the cavern. And at the moment, can't really see anything. So I do this. Zip my magic and let have your lights. Now that is Speedwell Cavern's bottomless pit. That's how it's called, the bottomless pit, and the depth of it on the way back. But now, I need to tell you something very important. If you guys look directly in front of you at the wall, it's about chest height on the left-hand side. There's a line right there. That line, now that line there is the flood line. With heavy downpours of rainwater will fill the bottomless pit, gets that line, this will fill both the tunnels either side of it and sink both boats. 2019, last full year before COVID, we had to close 112 times in the year because of flooding alone. I've got to tell you that while we're here and not on the surface. But yeah, now if you guys want to wander around and take photos, please feel free. If anyone's got any questions, don't be afraid to ask me. Happy to answer them. Now guys, what do you like? Yeah, basically. So at this point, guys, I should probably ask, is everybody on the boat? No, I'll take that nervous laughter as yes. I do like to ask because the other day someone forgot their wife in the cavern. She was in there for about half an hour by herself. Let's just say when I did pick her up, she really didn't like me. But her husband did say it was the most peaceful half an hour of his life. So every cloud, I guess. Now, on the way back very shortly, I mean, you guys have probably already felt it. There's a draft. It is colder on the way back, and it will get colder and colder the further we get down the tunnel. Now that's because we have a giant industrial fan at the other end of the tunnel. It serves two very important purposes. First one being clean, breathable air circulating down here. We all like to breathe. That's a massive plus. But the main reason being, everything that is around you guys at the moment is limestone. Limestone gives off a natural gas called radon, and radon is radioactive. Probably should have told you that before you bought your tickets, but don't worry, they'll be down here for 20 years for it to have any sort of effect on you. You guys are here for the one tour, you're completely fine. You get the same dosage as eating a banana. However, we do have a tour guide that has been working down here for 27 years. And he's starting to look a bit like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, but apart from that, he's completely fine. But if you do see him, let me know. And when I get to the surface, I start glowing in the dark, so that's pretty cool. Now, on the way back, very shortly, we're getting up to the bellows hole. Now, the bellows hole was dug out by the miners because they didn't have an industrial fan like we do, and they needed a way of circulating air further down the system. So they dug out the bellows hole, sat two young boys in there, maybe 13 years of age, and now they sat on something called blacksmith's bellows. Basically, massive pumps used to stoke fires for blacksmiths. What they thought they were doing was circulating the air further down the system. That they weren't achieving, but they're also pushing all the cigarette smoke and all the blast fumes back in the miners' faces, making it extremely hard for them to see and breathe down here. What made it even worse was the radon, which sit and linger in the air and create thick smoke. If that thick smoke is here today, you won't be able to see 2 foot in front of you. So it's a good job we have our industrial fan. It's doing wonders. It's pushing that radioactive smoke through the air, out through cracks in the rocks in the far canal. It's actually dispersing it all across Castleton, which explains a lot about the locals, to be honest. Now, those at the front, very faintly, may be able to see another boat. Now, I don't blame you if you can't really see it, but very faintly, there is another boat anyway. Just take my word for it. Now, the other boat, just like us at the beginning, wants to get past. So what they're going to do is pull into the halfway house, and we'll be right on by them in literally a few moments. So, bear with me. So, right then guys, before we go past the other boat, I should let you in on something. Basically, there's a little bit of a tradition when we go past another tour group. Now, you can remember probably on the way in where the other tour guide took the mick out of me. Basically, this tradition's been going on for easy 60 years, and what it entails is taking the mick out of the other tour guide. And it's also my favourite part of the tour. You will see why in a few seconds. So, I'm going to take the mick out of the other tour guide. But before I do, and have a bit too much fun doing so, is there any more questions at this point on the way back? Because after this, there'll be a clear run back, and then I'm going to tell you about the bottomless pit. But before then, any questions?
No, how long have you been doing tours?
Oh, it's my first day.
That's what she thought.
No, about 5 years roughly. Roughly about 4.5, 5 years.
I think she means how long have tours been operating?
Oh, well, I thought you meant me. So tours down here have been running for about 80 years. This place was bought over 80 years ago and turned into a tourist attraction, and from that point onwards they ran tours down here.
So it's just empty between the end of the 18th century and nothing.
Basically, yeah.
Are you saying that this boat is that old?
No, the boat themselves, this is a terrifying fact, the boats were made 2 months before I was born, and they were put in 2004, 2 years later, so the boats are 20 years old, just to fill you with confidence.
So, as you are, mate.
Yeah. So, right then guys, The tour guide sat at the front of that boat, Bart. You guys should know something about him. It's a really, really big day for Bart today. We are really proud of him. It's his first day back since the incident. Just don't ask him about it. I feel so much better now. They look terrified. We are going to continue, guys. Final stretch. And I did say I'd tell you about the bottomless pit, so I will now. Now, the bottomless pit. How old is it? Was a question asked over 80 years ago. Now they wanted to find out how old the cavern was, so they got a team of cave scientists to come down and find out they're from Birmingham University. Now, it was quite easy to date the cavern itself, but then my boss's grandfather had a more pressing question. He turned to the bottomless pit and he asked them if they could find out how deep it is. So, they went ahead and did so, but they needed help. Now, the cave scientists got two of the very first tour guides that ever worked here to find out for them. Basically, the cave scientists were lazy and didn't want to do it themselves, so they sent the tour guides down to do it themselves. The tour guides went down with very specialised equipment. It's very technical. They sent them down with a lead weight and the longest piece of rope you've ever seen in your lives. It was gigantic. He told them very simple instructions. They were told to wrap the rope around the lead weight and throw it into the water. See how far it goes down? It's pretty simple. Now the two tour guides got to the edge of the bottomless pit and threw the rope in. And they lowered it down. And they lowered it down. And they lowered it down. So they had no more rope left. They were astonished. They could not believe the bottomless pit just eaten all of their rope. They went back to the cave scientists, ecstatic, explaining to him the bottomless pit has to be bottomless. It's eaten all of our rope. Now, the cave scientists couldn't believe it. Before going back to Mr. Harrison with the answer, they had to find out if those claims were true. So they went to the bottomless pit with the two tour guides. They got to the edge of the water and shone the torch on the surface of it. What they saw was all of the rope floating on the surface of the water because they hadn't attached the lead weight to it. Now I told them to repeat the process and stop being idiots. They did this and came back to the cave scientists with a real answer on how deep it is. And it shocked them because I can tell you guys that Speedwell Cavern's bottomless pit is an amazing and astounding and awe-inspiring, you best believe I'm dragging this out, 11,000 dramatic pause millimeters deep. You guys definitely took that better than Mr. Harrison. For a conversion, it's 11 meters deep. Now you guys definitely took it better than Mr. Harrison. When the cave scientists went back to him and told him how deep it was, he simply just didn't believe them. Why on earth is it called the bottomless pit if it's 11 meters deep? It's actually a really simple explanation. Do you guys remember the other tunnel in the cavern, the Far Canal? Now when the miners were digging out that tunnel, basically they couldn't be bothered to take their waste rock from that tunnel through this one back up to the surface. So they started throwing all of their waste rock into the bottomless pit. Over 40,000 tonnes of rock was thrown in. If the miners hadn't thrown in all of that waste rock, nowadays the bottomless pit would be 120 metres deep. So now it only being 11 metres deep, a lot of rock was thrown in. We get to the end of the tour, guys, in the next few moments. A few pieces of information at the end I'll tell you in just a second. Before we get there, final questions before the end. If no one's got a question, can I tell you guys some of the more ridiculous questions have been asked over my time down here? Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Any of you teachers?
Nope.
No? Well, I once had a teacher on my tour. Let's just say she shouldn't have been one. She came down, sat the tour. First thing she asked me, does it ever get dark down here at night? Now, you know, the woman once looked very confused throughout the tour. Until we got to the end, she hopped off the boat and asked me how many undiscovered passageways are there? Undiscovered being the key word. I told her 5 and she believed me. Now, the best one by far, still makes me laugh to this day, actually got me in trouble with my boss. I had a very, very bad day. It was made even worse by the last tour of the day. A man hopped off the boat and genuinely asked me, how thick are the walls? Now, I responded with, about as thick as you are, and he really didn't like me, let's just say that. Apparently that was the wrong answer. Now, we've got to the end of the tour, as you can see. A few pieces of information I ask you to remember at the end. First one, me, I'll secure the boat, tell you when it's safe to get off, just bear with me. At the very top, dump your hard hats where you found them at the beginning. Makes it easier for me to gather them at the end. Apart from that, guys, we're going to have to end the tour on a bad note. Do you guys remember those 106 steps you walked down to get here? Oh yeah, they're still waiting for you, they haven't gone anywhere. Just take your time, man. No, I'm afraid not. Just take your time to go up the stairs, there's no rush. Apart from that, thank you ever so much for coming down to Speedwell Cavern. Have a great rest of your day and a safe journey home. Cheers everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you, appreciate it.
And there we go, guys. That was the Speedwell Cavern. And that was great fun. Now the time to get back to the surface. Hello again, guys. We've finished our day. So we've been to Castleton, then we went to the Speedwell Cavern and also Bakewell. It was a very nice day. Very misty to begin with, and then it cleared up a little bit at the end. But yeah, no, we had a really good time. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.